Wabi Sabi, translations into one word or phrase, do this concept injustice. Impermanence, imperfection, transience. Sometimes the best way to understand a concept, especially one that influences entire styles of art over a period of hundreds of years, is to compare it to what we may know personally, or what we can see with our eyes and feel with our hands. For me, what I see and feel is my lived experience with life-threatening and lifespan-shortening illnesses and conditions. But I hope for you, using examples like pottery or other visual mediums can help explain my issues as a disabled person and to understand the concept of Wabi Sabi. Now, much of the dominant Western culture we experience today, and I have grown up in, has the habit of trying to capture a point in time to keep forever. That is not to say there is no acknowledgement of the passing of time, but it is this passing that is to be avoided, ignored, or actively railed against. Think of all the skincare dedicated to wrinkle reductions, as opposed to treating it as actual dermal medicine for the benefit of the person. Or consider something like the fine china sets grandmothers are known to keep in immaculate condition, almost to never be used. Even small rules of ours enforce this. Older etiquette rules using cutlery were designed to ensure the designs on plates and cups would not be scratched, to keep their condition as perfect as the day it was made. The West is not unique in this view of time passing, but as it is the most prevalent culture we are forced to live under, this is the most influential type. This is also the time to acknowledge that many marginalized Western cultures that accept a passage of time and exalt aging as a positive process have been stolen from us through inter-European warring genocides. Various pagan and indigenous Western philosophies throughout history have been erased over time. See the Celtic genocides, the erasure of German folk histories under the Nazis, the hunting of witches, and the marginalization of the Sami people in Scandinavia as some examples. It's also a very particular American-style desire to essentially avoid death, with startups and medicine concentrating so much on extending lives instead of trying to make existing or even known shorter lives better. Consider that there have been cases of opioid denial to cancer patients who are in their final weeks or months, because the policies on prescribing are dedicated only to the idea of every patient trying to preserve life as long as possible and needing to avoid those very real side effects of long-term opioid use and abuse. As an add to this with the whole opioid denial thing, I am literally just today on September 12th reading an ABC, so Australia Broadcasting Network, article about a small child who has inoperable terminal brain cancer who is literally being denied things like supports to help him get in and out of bed, or even like basic living standards so his final months can be decent. This isn't even medicine. He's being denied shit like equipment. There is no institutional understanding of a shorter life being inevitable for some, therefore leaving practitioners unable to provide comfortable living standards for those people. This also links into the euthanasia issues facing people who are fighting for the right to a dignified death. There is a lack of want to face any consideration of this moving of time, that one must do their best to live within the scope of preserving the static life. I say static because those against medically controlled euthanasia do not acknowledge the issues of severe and sudden changes in people's medical conditions. There is an expectation of a gentle slip down towards death, which is far from the reality of people considering euthanasia or from the reality of history as a whole. It's also not to say that this perspective is without merit. Aesthetically, it is a way we are able to look back into the past and see what lives may have been like for those who had the money to depict and maintain these works. It can also be seen as a traumatic response to historical wars that rocked a severe impermanence into a culture that desperately wanted something familiar. Of course, there were art movements railing against this, born of the trauma response. such as the Dada art movement, which aesthetically prioritized the randomness in life by developing art styles that reflected this. Poetry made from pulling words from a bag, exquisite corpse collaborative paintings, collages that brought the elements of the real in their life and media into a more chaotic interpretation that reflected what they thought was real. They railed against the elite in the art world, with Duchamp's protest putting a urinal as an art piece in a fancy French competition to force people to question why they were prioritizing art that hid away the horrors that they had all just faced from World War I. Dadaism went on to influence artists such as Pablo Picasso, who popularized his further aesthetic movements that impact us greatly today. We see these familiar adages all the time, a desire to return to a previous state that has been captured in the varying aesthetics developed over that time. It allows us an easy way to visually identify history and those values. The 50s seems to be a common one, as there are people alive now with good memories of this time that currently have influence on popular media being presented. The desire for a return to that time is a form of permanence capturing in a nostalgic orgy of misunderstood facts. I'm sure most of you are aware that those times probably seem better for those who remember them now, because when they were alive during that time, they were children without the burdens of jobs, and once they were able to get jobs, they were not burdened with an insane amount of debt. This, of course, does not apply to anyone who is not a middle-class Anglo-Saxon male at the time. Even being a different type of white person was way too much diversity for those people. Wabi Sabi is a fairly well-known Japanese phrase that encompasses a style of philosophy that has influenced many Japanese arts. Compared to, say, the concepts of Yugen or Miyabi, it is the one that allows an alternative appreciation style to the extreme refinement that historically was seen in imported styles. While these refined foreign styles were successfully emulated and domesticated by local designers and artisans, there was a desire to appreciate more local and avant-garde arts. Some of the first formal appreciation of abstract art in the world can be seen as having developed from this philosophy in Japan many hundreds of years ago. The best visual example of this comparable arts process is pottery. Wabi Sabi philosophy in pottery allowed for the development of entirely domestic-based concepts of pottery creation and firing, bringing us the concept of rakuware, where low-temperature fired earthenware is decorated by applying all sorts of items to the red-hot pottery. Horsehair, feathers, wood chips, and even scraps of food are used. For those into pottery, concepts like salt and soda firings with the randomness of outcomes are beloved in this method. The outcomes are often incredibly random, and the beauty is in the process, the immediate outcome, and then how the piece changes over time with use. The oil from one's hands, the items it contains, the ways it is stored, and the methods in which it is repaired are all encompassed in the Wabi Sabi philosophy. Kintsugi, the method of repairing pottery with urishi lacquer and then highlighting the cracks with gold powder, is one of the more contemporarily popular versions of this Wabi Sabi practice. Despite it being commercialized in such a way that it is antithetical to the Wabi Sabi concept of natural changes over time, kits teaching people how to do this process encourage a deliberate act of breaking pottery as opposed to accidental. Compare this to Chinese pottery. Chinese styles prioritized porcelain as it was domestically available in great quantities, and there was a larger system of pottery manufacturing from a much earlier age. We call many forms of porcelain China because that's where literally all of it came from for a great period of time. Chinese pottery had extremely elaborate and layered forms of firing for the decoration of these items, and the porcelain was able to withstand these many heat changes, whereas earthenware, which is used by basically every other culture making pottery, was unable to withstand this without the pieces being destroyed. Longquan Celadon styles of pottery, where porcelain is decorated in a delicate greenish glaze resembling jade, is an example of one of the styles that was most popular before the distinctive blue and white decorative styles we see in popular culture today gained prominence. You can see a lovely explanation of its modern creation and impact on the game Genshin Impact on YouTube. An interesting note in this video is where Li Zhen inspects the fired pieces for defects, and then smashes the ones not considered compliant with his standards as a master ceramicist. The aim is a consistent and perfect outcome based on science and methods passed down since its original development in 950 AD. This was a common practice in kilns all over China, where raw materials were more plentiful and the kilns more able to be fired, simply due to the larger amount of resources on the mainland, both of materials, space, and people. I actually have a lovely necklace that features a piece of Ming Dynasty pottery recovered from one of these hundreds of pits full of these sherds. Longquan Celadon was so popular that it was imported into Japan, and here artisans did their best to create their own versions, naming this variant Seiji. The Japanese Pottery Information Center website notes that most Japanese potters, however, did not engage with this style due to the high level of unrecoverable loss during the firing process. Up to 80% of fired pottery using this process would be broken and unusable. Modern ceramicists who can make these pieces successfully can fetch hefty prices for their works. Oh, but they can fix it, right, with kintsugi and all Wabi Sabi? No, pottery breakages in kiln firing processes often lead to dangerous pieces, a lack of vitrification of the clay preventing it from being turned into food-safe usable pottery, and can damage other pieces in the kiln as well. So where does the Wabi Sabi come in? In the processes of capturing the technologies of foreign countries, the main and genuinely amazing thing that Japanese artisans were able to do was develop a system of domestication that prioritized the utilization of all local materials and methods to reduce waste. They did not eschew foreign inventions. They integrated the portions of technology that was suitable for local use to achieve locally desired outcomes. Pottery is just the main example I have here. We can see this in other technology, such as metalworking methods imported from Syria via the Silk Road, Urushi lacquerware decoration development after its import from the mainland, and silk fabric brocade development in weaving. Wabi Sabi philosophies of impermanence, change, and appreciation for the natural causes of such things that lead to life itself allowed these changes to be philosophically integral to the development of Japanese aesthetics. Wabi Sabi allowed the thought processes of the elite to prioritize and desire systems of manufacturing that could ensure Japan could reduce its need for foreign imports of what it considered beautiful. It's a chicken and the egg discussion of what came first, the philosophy informing the need, or the need creating the values to create the philosophy. There was, of course, a desire for items with foreign styles, but we can see that imports were needed less and less over time to fulfill this need. Eventually, it was raw materials that could only be sourced from overseas that was prioritized for import. A wonderful example of this desire to reduce the need of imports is from Toyokichi Takamatsu's chemistry PhD graduate thesis, published in 1877, called On Japanese Pigments. He developed a comprehensive catalogue of pigments used in Japan, including sources, impacts on their communities, artisan opinions on their usefulness, and where able, entire chemical compositions for others to create their own. In describing the red pigment Bengara, he notes it originated from Bengal, India, and then goes on to note its chemical composition and its newfound high-quality sources in the Iwashiro province. Along with the eventual Tokugawa shogunate closing of Japan to outside influence basically accelerating this process, the Wabi Sabi's philosophy style was exalted in even the most elite circles of arts consumption. However, it was not without its controversies, and as the channel Ise and Bonsai outlines in their analysis of Wabi Sabi effects on gardening and bonsai plants, the man responsible for introducing Wabi Sabi concepts to existing tea ceremonies, flower arrangements, and other aesthetic pursuits, was given orders to commit seppuku by the shogunate Hideyoshi. This man's name was Senno Rikyu, or most commonly known as Rikyu. Many English-language sources only tell the story of a shogun scared of an advisor's controversial statements. But as Eizai and Bonsai points out, it was more likely that the shogun, who was a great appreciator of these aesthetic developments Rikyu made, was so offended by his profiteering in the sales of said simple items that the only way to resolve the philosophical offense was to ensure the death of the man who created it. This is why I say those kintsugi kits are antithetical to Wabi Sabi philosophy. The lacquer does not come from your local area. The simplicity of repair is complicated by the deliberate breaking of the plates, the delivery of the kit, the impact it makes on the world. You can easily learn Japanese urushi lacquer-based techniques with the same ingredients to create beautiful things instead. Your local area may have appropriate glue-based crafts and repair methods from local materials, such as other tree saps, animal glues, or other lacquers like traditional shellac, and you can use these methods and local materials to repair things in a similar style. But in this case, with those kintsugi kits, what is being sold is the simulacrum of Wabi Sabi philosophy. This is a philosophy that exalts the passage of time and allows a multitude of human reactions to it. The pitiful sadness of watching seasons change, the joyful reactions of birth and life, the ways one knows an elder has seen more beauties and horrors than you can comprehend, and the way they can look back up on your young face, knowing that you may see worse. Every wrinkle that graces my face is a crow's foot that I am proud to show. All those Western philosophies that were taken from us, telling us to respect older women for their knowledge in keeping the next generation healthy enough to survive the winters, they show in how I live today. But I have no ability to describe this joy, this indelible existential dread, the love of a spoon dented by my use over time. That was taken away from me, from many Western folks, and now in the colonial period of our world history, it has been taken from every culture that has had this horrific influence of the desire to capture time in this static way. There is no planning for the future now, only immediate profits, only how a die will look within 3 months, only how laws can be changed within the framework of this static nature. It is likely that I will die in my car in a Macca's parking lot after eating a contaminated item. My death will in no way be dignified. I will piss and shit and scream. I will vomit until my throat closes up and drown on the very thing that is killing me. EpiPens are no guarantee of survival, but they are a guarantee that I will be fully aware of every ounce of pain racking through my body as the anaphylaxis spreads from my intestines to my throat, to every inch of skin feeling like it is being set on fire. In the hospitals, I will have no way of refusing medical care. They will inject me with as much epi as they need, keeping me conscious. The doctors and nurses will be horrified. They do not deserve to see such suffering that can't be stopped. I can be easily made brain dead in this process, with the only method these practitioners are allowed to perform being that of trying to keep my body in the static act of being alive. Due to these same rules, I am denied the ability to provide informed consent in signing a do not resuscitate order. I must go through this. The rules dictate as much. This is inevitable if I go through an anaphylactic reaction. There is no recourse. And people with much more deadly conditions than mine struggle to get even the idea of pain relief in their final moments. But I have outlived multiple life expectancies. In my limitations, I have found the ability to thrive as much as this world will let me. My resilience should not be something anyone desires to have a similar amount of. I thrive in the dregs of survival because I find joy in the aging process. My body changes. I become less of a target of predators and can be more at peace in public. My wrinkles show that I have smiled 1,000,000 times. The freckles a reminder of sunny days and beautiful parks. My pouch tummy a reminder of the delicious wine that I have had the opportunity to drink. My works have improved and changed. My ideas have flourished and have been thrown away. I desire no static time capturing, no eternal struggle for a life immortal. Every day I live is like a new Wabi Sabi style Ikebana arrangement, made to reflect that new moment, the passage of time of that very moment, to be actively considering what should be there tomorrow, what flower I will pick next week or next year, and the preparations required from reflecting on the past in order to honor the natural and man-made resources that allow this beauty to flourish now and in the future. Wabi Sabi, watching its resilience in its inherent nature to resist these influences of capitalism, to watch others to be able to take it up as a positive part of their thinking, and to note that this is one of the few philosophies that people may see as exotic that can be taught by the original practitioners and beneficiaries of these philosophies.